The question that has been in my mind for 50 years is, why is the United States government suppressing research into certain medicines while at the same time allowing research into other medicines?
Richard's quest to understand the origins of the war on drugs led him to a man named Harry J. Anslinger, who was appointed by his uncle-in-law, then Treasury Secretary Andrew Mellon, as the first commissioner of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics.
The Treasury Department intends to pursue a relentless warfare against the despicable, dope-peddling vulture who preys on the weakness of his fellow man.
Before Anslinger's appointment, doctors, not dope peddlers, routinely subscribed now illegal substances for a variety of medical conditions.
But when Harry took their prescription privileges away, it left one group and one group only to sell heroin, cocaine, and marijuana. And that was, of course, the criminal cartels, the criminal enterprises, which then were fueled with billions of dollars and are creating trouble on a worldwide scale. The doctors lost their privileges, the criminals got the monopoly, patients were turned into criminals, and our jails got filled with people that were black and were brown and were yellow, mostly black and brown.
To put it lightly, Harry Anslinger was not a fan of jazz music or African Americans, both of which he associated with marijuana.
And bitter
Anslinger used all of his authority to go after Holiday and other jazz musicians to solidify the public's fears that marijuana would turn their children into sex-crazed criminals. You can hear this full story in an interview Richard did with author Johan Hari at Psychepedia.org. But the true start of the war on drugs was much earlier.
Attempts to use prohibition as a way to get people to behave has been going on, of course, for thousands of years, and our country just picked right up on it. And one of the founders of the Declaration of Independence, Dr. Benjamin Rush, who is also considered by some to be the father of modern psychiatry, was strongly against the use of alcohol. He's basically said angels in heaven would turn inside out if they saw the effects of alcohol. What came out of this prominent doctor's strong position was the Women's Christian Temperance Union, which finally had their success in what was prohibition in the United States. Prohibition not only failed to stop people from drinking alcohol, but it spawned the mafia. It fueled them because they had the sole monopoly on selling alcohol when nobody else could sell it.
Following the repeal of alcohol prohibition, Anslinger's Bureau of Narcotics was on the verge of irrelevance. Without the equivalent of a temperance movement banded together against marijuana, Anslinger had to rely heavily on the public's fears of racial mixing caused by marijuana smoking by youth. Concerned parents replaced the temperance movement, and drug cartels replaced the mafia, but the strange alliance of moral crusaders and criminal profiteers continued into the next decade.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to summarize for you the meeting that I have just had with bipartisan leaders. Public enemy number one in the United States is drug abuse.
This time, the ban included psychedelics. A few years prior to Nixon's rededication of the war on drugs, Richard was alerted to the suppression of research into certain psychedelics while teaching at Stanford and University of Michigan.
The thing that opened up the eyes of all of us is when Leary and Alpert were fired from Harvard. University professors at the most distinguished university on the planet were fired for doing research. So I was in an academic atmosphere, and I'm reading about colleagues at another college being fired for research. Being fired for research. That's what we heard.
For decades, there would be virtually no research into psychedelics. Only now are we beginning to overcome the suppression of information that has lasted for over 40 years.
There have been recent studies on MDMA. Dr. Michael Midhofer did a study in South Carolina, and I believe he just got a license to do additional research. And Dr. Phil Wolfson here in California recently got a license to do MDMA research. So there is a bit of research going on, a very small bit, but at least something.
Up next, we take a trip back to the 1960s. Stay tuned in and turned on to hear the story of how Richard responded to the firing of Leary and Alpert.